The wind screamed across the ice fields of Vostera 7 like a living thing, trying to tear the world apart. Owen Grant pulled his jacket tighter and swore under his breath as another gust rattled the metal walls of his facility. He should have gone home an hour ago. But the heating units for the new prefab shelters needed final adjustments before tomorrow's shipment. Out here on the frontier, faulty equipment meant frozen corpses, and Owen refused to have that on his conscience. He wiped grease from his hands and checked the temperature gauge. -40 outside and dropping fast. This storm would be a bad one. His weather scanner showed the ice clouds stacking up like mountains in the atmosphere, ready to dump another 3 feet of frozen hell onto the colony. Owen was reaching for his tools when something heavy slammed against the main door. The entire wall shuddered. His first thought was that the wind had torn something loose and sent it flying into the building. Then it happened again, and again. A rhythmic pounding that was definitely not random. He grabbed the plasma cutter from his workbench, the closest thing to a weapon in reach, and moved toward the door. The security camera outside showed only static and swirling white. The storm had knocked out the external sensors. Another impact shook the door, followed by a sound that made his blood run cold. Scratching. Desperate, frantic scratching against the metal. Owen hesitated. Nothing should be alive out there in this storm. The colony had wolves sometimes, big ones adapted to the ice, but they knew better than to approach human buildings. This was something else. Something bigger. The scratching stopped. For a long moment, Owen heard only the wind. Then a voice came through the door, muffled but unmistakable. Words in Galactic Common, the trade language used across 100 worlds. Please, help us, we are freezing. Owen stared at the door. His mind raced through possibilities. Raiders trying to trick him? A colonist lost in the storm? The voice sounded wrong, though, deeper than human, with an odd resonance that vibrated in his chest. Who are you? He called out. Please. My children. They will die. The desperation in those words hit Owen like a physical blow. He had lost his own child once. He knew that sound, that raw terror of a parent watching their offspring slip away. His hand moved to the door controls before his brain caught up. The door slid open and a wall of freezing air slammed into him. Owen staggered back, his breath turning to ice crystals in his lungs. Through the swirling snow, he saw a shape that made no sense. It was too big, too wrong. Then the shape moved into the light and Owen's world tilted sideways. A dragon. A real, actual dragon stood in his doorway. She was massive, easily 15 feet tall, even hunched over. Ice coated her silver scales in thick layers, making her look like a statue carved from frozen metal. Her wings were folded tight against her body, shredded in places and bleeding. Her eyes, huge and golden, locked onto Owen with desperate intelligence. Behind her, 2 smaller dragons huddled together, shaking so violently their teeth chattered. They looked young, maybe teenagers if dragons had such things. Their scales were darker, blue-gray, and covered in the same deadly ice. Between them, they were trying to hold up a 4th dragon, an adult male who was barely conscious, his breathing shallow and ragged. Please, the female dragon said again. Her mouth barely moved, but the words came out clear. We crashed 3 days ago. We have walked far. This is the first light we have seen. I beg you, human, help my family. Owen's hand shook. Dragons were rare, incredibly rare. Most humans went their whole lives without seeing one. He had heard stories, though. Old stories from the war times, when dragons had fought each other and burned entire colony worlds in their conflicts. Dangerous, the stories said, unpredictable. Keep away. But these dragons were not fighting anyone. They were dying. The injured male dragon collapsed, too weak to stand. The 2 young ones cried out and tried to catch him, but they were too weak themselves. All 4 of them were going to freeze to death right here on his doorstep if he did not do something. Owen made his decision in a heartbeat. He dropped the plasma cutter and hit the switch for the cargo bay door. The massive warehouse section of his facility began to open, large enough to fit the prefab buildings he manufactured. Get inside, he said. All of you. Now. The mother dragon stared at him like she could not believe what she was hearing. Then she moved, dragging her injured mate toward the opening. The 2 young dragons stumbled after her, barely able to walk. Owen ran to help them, getting under the shoulder of one of the youngsters and taking some of its weight. The dragon was heavy, incredibly heavy, but Owen was strong from years of construction work. They made it inside and Owen slammed the door shut behind them. The warehouse was not heated for habitation, but it was sealed and insulated. He ran to the control panel and cranked every heater in the building to maximum. The units roared to life, pushing warm air into the vast space. The dragons collapsed in a heap on the floor. The mother tried to stay upright, watching Owen with wary eyes even as her body shook with cold. The two young ones had passed out entirely. The injured male was barely breathing, his scales covered in dried blood and fresh wounds. Owen looked at them and felt his carefully controlled, quiet life crack wide open.
He had broken at least a dozen laws by letting them in.
Harboring unregistered aliens, failure to report, possible conspiracy charges. If the authorities found out, he would lose everything. His business, his freedom, possibly his life. But as he looked at the mother dragon desperately trying to keep her family alive, Owen thought about his own daughter. About the day he had lost her. About how he would have done anything, broken any law, destroyed any rule to save her. "Stay here," he told the dragon. "I will get medical supplies. We will fix this." The dragon's golden eyes filled with something that looked like tears. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you, human." Owen grabbed his emergency kit and got to work. He had no idea what he was doing, but he would figure it out. That was what humans did best. They adapted. They survived, and they protected those who needed protecting, even if those beings happened to be dragons. Sunlight crept through the high windows of the warehouse, painting lines of pale gold across the floor where 4 dragons lay sleeping. Owen had not slept at all. He sat on an overturned crate, watching the gentle rise and fall of their breathing, still half convinced this was some exhaustion-induced hallucination. His hands were stained with blood. Dragon blood, as it turned out, was darker than human blood, almost purple, and it had taken him 3 hours to clean and seal the worst of the injured male's wounds. He had used industrial sealant meant for hull repairs, veterinary supplies meant for colony livestock, and a lot of improvisation. Somehow it had worked. The male dragon's breathing was steady now, his body temperature slowly climbing back to normal. Owen's comm unit buzzed. His supervisor's face appeared on the screen, looking annoyed. "Grant, where are you? The shipment inspection is in 2 hours. Owen glanced at the sleeping dragons. "I'm sick. Food poisoning. I need a few days." His supervisor's expression shifted to disgust. "Fine, but those shelter units better be ready when you get back." The call ended. Owen exhaled slowly. He had just bought himself maybe 3 days before anyone came looking. 3 days to figure out what to do with 4 dragons hiding in his facility. A soft sound made him turn. The 2 young dragons were waking up, their eyes blinking open slowly. They saw Owen and immediately scrambled backward, their claws scraping against the concrete floor. The movement woke their mother, who surged to her feet despite her exhaustion. "Peace," she said quickly to her children, positioning herself between them and Owen. "This human helped us. He is safe." The young dragons did not look convinced. They huddled together, staring at Owen with wide, frightened eyes. One of them, the slightly larger one with a scar across their snout, spoke in a voice that shook. "Why would a human help us? Everyone else wanted us gone." Owen set down the medical supplies slowly, keeping his movements calm. "I'm Owen Grant. This is my facility. You're safe here." "Safe," the smaller young dragon repeated bitterly. "Nowhere is safe for dragons. Not anymore." The mother dragon looked at Owen with an expression that was painfully human in its exhaustion and grief. "My name is Silvara. These are my children, Frost and Ember. And this," she gestured to the injured male, still unconscious, "is my mate, Talon." "What happened to you?" Owen asked. Silvara's wings drooped. "We lived on Draconis 3, a colony world in the border territories. For 2 years we worked honestly. We followed their laws. We paid their taxes. But the local government decided dragons were too dangerous to live freely. They said we had to register where tracking collars work only in approved industries." Her voice hardened. "They said it was for everyone's safety. What they meant was they wanted free labor." Frost, the larger young dragon, spoke up. "They took our friends, put them in work camps, made them mine ore in the deep tunnels where no human would go. We ran," Ember added quietly. "We bought passage on a cargo ship with everything we had saved. But the ship was old and the pilot was drunk. We crashed here 3 days ago. The pilot died in the crash. We have been walking through the ice ever since." Owen felt something cold settle in his stomach. "I'm sorry. No one should have to live like that." Silvara stared at him. "You mean that?" "I can hear it in your voice. Why, we are dragons. Your species fought wars against ours centuries ago. That was centuries ago, Owen said. I don't care about ancient history. I care about what's in front of me. And what I see is a family that needs help. Frost made a sound that might have been a laugh. You're a strange human. I get that a lot. Over the next few hours, Owen made food. He had no idea what dragons ate, so he improvised. Heated protein bars, dried meat from his emergency supplies, and a pot of stew he had been saving for himself. The dragons ate carefully at first, then with increasing enthusiasm. Apparently, hunger made most things taste good regardless of species. While they ate, Owen worked on Talon's wounds. The male dragon woke briefly, looked around in confusion, and tried to speak. Silvara moved to his side, speaking softly in a language Owen did not recognize. It sounded like wind chimes and distant thunder mixed together. Talon's eyes found Owen, and he managed a small nod before exhaustion pulled him back under. He thanks you, Silvara translated. He says you have a good spirit. Owen did not know what to say to that, so he just kept working. Frost and Ember began exploring the warehouse, moving between the stacks of prefab panels and construction equipment. Frost accidentally knocked over a rack of power tools. The crash made everyone jump. The young dragon froze, terror written across their face. I am sorry, Frost said quickly, backing away. I will pay for it. I will work. Please do not be angry. Owen looked at the scattered tools and then at the terrified dragon. Something about that fear, that immediate assumption of punishment, made him angry. Not at Frost, but at whatever had taught them to be so afraid. It's okay, Owen said, walking over to pick up the tools. Accidents happen. No big deal. Come here, I'll show you how these work. Frost approached slowly, still nervous. Owen demonstrated each tool, explaining what it did and how to use it safely. The young dragon's fear gradually transformed into fascination. Soon Ember joined them, asking questions in rapid succession. How did humans build things so precisely? How did the power cells work? Why did humans use metal instead of stone? Owen found himself enjoying the conversation. It had been years since he had talked to anyone about his work with genuine enthusiasm. Most people saw construction as boring. The dragons saw it as fascinating. Silvara watched from beside her mate, her expression thoughtful.
You live here alone, she observed.
No family, no pack. This is unusual for humans, yes? Owen's hand stilled on the tool he was demonstrating. I had a family once. My wife and daughter. There was a transport accident 5 years ago. Mechanical failure. They died instantly. The warehouse fell silent. Silvara's eyes softened with understanding. I lost 2 children on Draconis 3, the work camps. They did not survive the conditions. She paused. Grief is the same, no matter the species. Owen met her eyes and saw the same pain he carried reflected back at him. They understood each other in that moment, 2 broken parents still trying to keep moving forward. You can stay here, Owen said quietly, as long as you need. I'll figure something out, Silvara bowed her head. You risk much for strangers. You're not strangers anymore. As night fell on Vostara 7, Owen showed the dragons where they could sleep comfortably. He set up additional heaters, brought out all the spare blankets he had, and made sure Talon was stable. Before he finally collapsed from exhaustion, he looked at the 4 dragons resting peacefully in his warehouse. For the first time in 5 years, his facility did not feel empty. Rain hammered against the warehouse roof in a steady rhythm that Owen had learned, meant the temperature was rising. Spring was coming to Vostara 7, which meant the ice would melt and turn everything into freezing mud for a few weeks. It also meant his supervisor would want to schedule that inspection soon, very soon. Owen stared at the dragons sleeping in his warehouse and tried to figure out how to hide 15-foot-tall beings with wings. The problem seemed impossible. The solution came to him while he was stacking prefab wall panels. I need to build a false wall, he said out loud. Silvara looked up from where she was helping Talon exercise his injured leg. A what? A fake wall. I manufacture modular building panels here. I can build a wall that looks like part of the warehouse structure but actually hides a space behind it. When the inspection happens, you hide back there and stay quiet. Frost tilted their head. Would that work? It has to work. The inspection is in 3 days. What followed was the strangest construction project Owen had ever undertaken. He designed the false wall, but the dragons proved surprisingly helpful in building it. Frost had incredibly steady hands despite their size, able to hold panels perfectly level while Owen welded them in place. Ember calculated angles and measurements with a precision that stunned Owen. doing complex mathematics in their head faster than his computer could. "How are you so good at this?" Owen asked as Ember called out another perfect measurement. "Dragons learn spatial reasoning as children," Ember explained. "We had to know how to fly safely. That means understanding wind patterns, angles, distances. Math is just patterns made visible." Talon, still recovering but mobile now, used his natural strength to lift heavy equipment that would have required Owen to use machinery. Silvara coordinated everything, her sharp eyes catching problems before they became mistakes. They worked through the night. As they worked, they talked. Silvara told Owen about dragon culture, about how they valued community above all else. Every dragon was part of a clan, and every clan looked after its members. The idea of living alone, as Owen did, was deeply troubling to them. "Humans are different," Owen tried to explain. "We can be social, but we can also be independent. Sometimes we choose to be alone." "But why would you choose loneliness?" Frost asked, genuinely confused. Owen was quiet for a long time. "Sometimes being alone feels safer than risking more loss." The dragons did not have an answer for that. But Silvara moved closer to Owen as they worked, a silent gesture of companionship that said more than words could. During a break, Frost found Owen's small storage room where he kept his personal belongings. The young dragon emerged carrying a framed photograph carefully in their claws. "Owen, who are these humans?" Owen's chest tightened. The photograph showed him with his wife and daughter, taken 7 years ago at a beach on Earth during their only vacation home. His daughter had been 8, her smile bright enough to power a starship. His wife had her arms around both of them, laughing at something Owen had said. "My family," Owen said quietly. "Sarah and Lily. This was taken 2 years before the accident." Ember moved closer to look at the photograph. "Your daughter, she had your eyes." "Everyone said that," Silvara approached slowly. "We lost our children, Flare and Crimson, during the first month in the work camps. They were young, barely able to fly. The conditions were too harsh. The overseers did not care that they were children. They just wanted the work done." Her voice broke. "We could not protect them." Owen looked at this dragon mother and saw his own grief reflected back. "I couldn't protect mine either. I was supposed to be on that transport with them. I stayed behind for a work meeting. A stupid, pointless work meeting that seemed important at the time. Guilt is a heavy thing to carry," Talon said softly. "It makes us feel if we just suffer enough we can somehow change the past. Can't we, though?" Frost asked, young and uncertain. "No," Owen and Silvara said at the same time. They looked at each other and something passed between them, an understanding, a shared truth. The past could not be changed, but maybe the future could be different. Maybe that was enough. Owen told them about Sarah, how she had been a teacher who loved terrible jokes. About Lily, who had wanted to be an astronaut and had memorized the names of every star system in the sector. The dragons listened and shared their own memories. Flare, who had been obsessed with collecting shiny rocks. Crimson, who had sung constantly, their voice carrying across the valleys of their homeworld. They mourned together in the quiet warehouse, 4 broken beings finding comfort in shared pain. The next day, Owen taught Frost and Ember how to use his tools properly. They were quick learners, their natural precision making them excellent at detailed work. Ember became fascinated with welding, watching the metal fuse together with an intensity that made Owen smile. Frost preferred the design work, sketching ideas for buildings that combined human practicality with dragon aesthetics. "You have made this place your home," Ember observed, looking around the warehouse. "But it is designed only for work. Where do you rest? Where do you dream?" Owen realized he did not have a good answer. He slept on a cot in the corner office. He ate standing up at his workbench. He had not decorated, had not made anything personal. This was a place to work, not a place to live. "You have been existing, not living," Silvara said gently, "since you lost them." "I guess I have." "That is not what they would want for you." Owen knew she was right. Sarah would have been furious at him for wasting years hiding from life. Lily would have begged him to be happy again. But knowing something and feeling it were different things. The false wall took shape over 2 days of intense work. When it was finished, it looked like a genuine part of the warehouse structure. Behind it was a space large enough for 4 dragons to hide comfortably. Owen stocked it with supplies, heaters, and a communication device so he could warn them when to be silent. The night before the inspection, they tested it. The dragons squeezed into the hidden space and Owen sealed the wall. From the outside, it looked completely normal. He could not hear them at all. "This will work," he told them when he opened it again. "And after the inspection?" Talon asked. "What then?" "We cannot hide here forever." Owen had been avoiding that question. "I don't know, but we'll figure something out. Together." Frost surprised him by pressing their snout gently against his shoulder, a dragon gesture of affection he had learned meant trust and family. "You are part of our clan now, Owen Grant. Dragons do not abandon clan." "Humans don't either," Owen said. "Not the good ones anyway." That night Owen could not sleep. He kept thinking about the inspection, about what would happen if they were discovered. But he also thought about the past few weeks, about how the warehouse had filled with voices and laughter, about how Ember's questions made him think differently about his work, about how Frost's enthusiasm reminded him that wonder still existed in the world, about how Silvara and Talon had become something like friends, maybe even family. He had spent 5 years building walls around his heart, trying to keep the pain contained, but these dragons had walked through his defenses without even trying. They had reminded him what it felt like to care about someone, to worry about someone, to want to protect someone. It terrified him. But it also felt like waking up after a long, dark sleep. Tomorrow the inspection would come. Tomorrow his careful lies might crumble. But tonight Owen Grant was not alone, and that made all the difference. The inspection lasted exactly 43 minutes, and Owen was certain he aged 10 years during every single one of them. His supervisor walked through the facility with a checklist, examining equipment, checking inventory, asking questions that seemed designed to catch Owen in a lie. Behind the false wall, 4 dragons held absolutely still and silent. When his supervisor finally left, Owen waited a full hour before opening the hidden space. The dragons emerged slowly, stretching cramped muscles. "That was terrifying," Frost whispered. "It's over now," Owen said, though his hands were still shaking. "We're safe," but were they? The close call had reminded Owen how fragile their situation really was. One mistake, one surprise visit, one piece of bad luck, and everything would come crashing down. 2 weeks passed. Life developed a rhythm. During the day, Owen worked on his official projects. At night, the dragons helped him complete orders faster than he ever had alone. Talon's strength meant Owen could lift heavy materials without machinery. Ember's calculations eliminated costly errors. Frost's steady hands made precision work easy. Silvara's organizational skills kept everything running smoothly. Owen's productivity increased so dramatically that his company noticed. He received a bonus and a message from corporate praising his efficiency. The irony was not lost on him. He was breaking laws by hiding the dragons, but those same dragons were making him a model employee. He used the bonus money to buy better food and medical supplies. The dragons were grateful, but Silvara watched him with concerned eyes. "You spend all your money on us," she said one evening. "What else am I going to spend it on?" "Your own life. Your own future." Owen shrugged. "This is my life now. You are my future." The words came out before he thought about them, but once spoken he realized they were true. Somewhere in the past weeks, these dragons had stopped being refugees he was helping. They had become family. Ember had claimed Owen's small collection of books and was working through them methodically. The young dragon particularly loved human literature, fascinated by how humans told stories. "You write about loneliness often," Ember observed one night. "Many of your greatest stories are about isolated individuals seeking connection. We're social creatures who often feel alone," Owen said. "Even when we're surrounded by people. Dragons have stories too, but they are different. They are about the clan, the group. Individual dragons are never the hero. The clan is the hero. Maybe that's healthier." "Maybe," Ember agreed. "But your human stories teach something important. They teach that one person can make a difference. One person's choice can change everything." Owen thought about that. One person's choice. He had made a choice to open his door to freezing dragons. That choice had changed his life completely. Frost showed Owen dragon fire-breathing techniques, carefully controlled to help with metalworking. The precision heating allowed Owen to create stronger welds than his equipment alone could manage. Together they began experimenting with new designs that combined human engineering with dragon capabilities. One night, Frost showed Owen a sketch. What if we built shelters that could adapt to temperature changes naturally, using materials that respond to heat like dragon scales do? Owen studied the design. It was brilliant. The shelters would be self-regulating, requiring less power and maintenance. This could revolutionize frontier construction. Then let us build it. They worked on a prototype together, human and dragon collaborating on something neither could have created alone. When it was finished, Owen tested it thoroughly. The shelter maintained perfect internal temperature regardless of outside conditions, using a fraction of the power traditional systems required. I need to submit this to my company, Owen said, but I can't explain where the ideas came from. Then say you had help from consultants who wish to remain anonymous, Silvara suggested. Owen submitted the design with exactly that explanation. 3 days later, he received a message. His company loved it. They wanted to put it into immediate production. They wanted to give Owen an innovation award. They wanted him to come to the regional headquarters to present his work. This is bad, Owen said, staring at the message. Awards mean attention. Attention means scrutiny. Scrutiny means discovery. Then refuse the award, Talon said. I can't. Refusing would raise questions. They might send investigators to find out why. They were trapped by their own success. The dragons saw Owen's distress and gathered around him, a gesture of comfort and support. We will face this together, Silvara said firmly. Whatever comes, we are clan now. Clan does not abandon clan. That night, Ember asked Owen about human concepts of family. You use the word family for people who are not related by blood. How does that work? Owen thought carefully. Humans believe family is not just about blood. It's about who you choose to love, who you choose to protect, who you choose to build a life with. We call it found family, people who find each other when they need each other most. Like us, Frost said quietly. Like us, Owen agreed. Silvara made a deep rumbling sound that Owen had learned was a sign of strong emotion in dragons. In dragon culture, we have a ceremony. When someone outside the clan performs acts of profound kindness, when they prove they will sacrifice for the clan, we adopt them as family. True family. Blood-bonded family. You want to adopt me? Owen asked, stunned. You saved our lives. You gave us shelter when no one else would. You have worked with us, laughed with us, mourned with us. You are already family in every way that matters. The ceremony just makes it official. Owen felt tears forming. I would be honored. The ceremony was simple but powerful. Silvara and Talon spoke words in the old dragon language, their voices harmonizing in a way that made the air vibrate. They pressed their foreheads against Owen's, sharing warmth and breath. Frost and Ember did the same, their eyes bright with emotion. You are clan, Silvara said in galactic common. From this moment until the stars grow cold, you are our family. Your joy is our joy. Your pain is our pain. Your enemies are our enemies. Your home is our home. Owen could not speak through the lump in his throat. He just nodded and held them close. This impossible family he had found in the frozen darkness. Later that night, as the dragons slept, Owen looked at the photograph of Sarah and Lily. For the first time in 5 years, he felt like he could breathe properly. The grief was still there. It would always be there, but it no longer consumed him completely. I think you would like them, he whispered to the photograph. They're strange and wonderful, and they've saved me just as much as I saved them. He imagined Sarah smiling at him, approving. Imagined Lily being fascinated by dragons and asking them a million questions. The thought did not hurt as much as it once had. Instead, it felt warm, a good memory instead of a painful one. Owen realized that honoring his lost family did not mean staying frozen in grief. It meant living fully, loving completely, and opening his heart to new possibilities. Sarah and Lily would have wanted that for him. They would have wanted him to be happy. The next morning, Owen woke to find Frost and Ember had decorated the facility. They had hung fabric scraps like banners, arranged equipment into something almost artistic, and placed small glowing light cells around the space. The warehouse looked less like a factory and more like a home. What is all this? Owen asked. You said humans make spaces personal when they matter, Ember explained. This place matters, so we made it personal. Owen looked around at the transformed space and felt something break open in his chest. This was a home, his home, their home, together. It's perfect, he said. Silvara smiled, her expression warm and content. Yes, it is. For the first time since the accident, Owen Grant felt like he had a future worth living for. Not because he had forgotten the past, but because he had learned to carry it with him while still moving forward. The dragons had taught him that. Family, whether blood or found, made even the hardest burdens bearable. Outside, spring continued to melt the ice of Vostara 7. Inside the warehouse, warmth of a different kind filled every corner. The warmth of belonging. The warmth of love. The warmth of home. The message from corporate arrived on a Tuesday morning and changed everything. Owen's innovative shelter design had won the Company Innovation Award, and executives were coming to visit the facility personally in 1 week. They wanted to see where the genius ideas were being developed. They wanted to understand Owen's process. They wanted to stay for 3 days. 3 days. With 4 dragons hiding in his warehouse. Owen sat down hard on a crate, the message still glowing on his screen. Silvara read it over his shoulder and went very still. "We will leave," she said quietly. "We will not let you lose everything because of us." "No," Owen said immediately. "We're family. Families stick together, but how?" Frost asked, practical as always. "We cannot hide from multiple people for 3 days straight." Owen's mind raced. The false wall had worked for a short inspection, but sustained observation was different. The executives would be everywhere, asking questions, watching everything. Then an idea struck him. The old mining tunnels, the ones beneath the facility. They were abandoned years ago when the colony expanded, but they are still structurally sound. "We can set up a temporary living space down there with heaters and supplies." Talon nodded slowly. "It could work, but the tunnels will be cold. Very cold. I will make it work. I have 6 days to prepare." What followed was the most intense construction project Owen had ever attempted. He worked frantically to make the tunnels habitable, running power lines for heating units, installing lights, bringing down food and water supplies. The dragons helped despite their exhaustion, carrying equipment through the narrow access shaft. But Owen was pushing himself too hard. He barely slept, barely ate. By day 5, he was running on stimulants and stubborn determination. Silvara watched him with growing concern. "You will collapse," she warned. "I will rest when the executives leave." "Owen, you are killing yourself. I am keeping my family safe." On day 6, the ice storm hit. Not a normal storm, but a massive weather system that swept across the entire region. Within hours, the temperature dropped 40 degrees. Power grids began failing across the colony. Emergency alerts flooded every communication channel. People were trapped in buildings without heat, without power, without hope. Owen stood at his window watching the chaos and felt his carefully constructed plans crumble. The tunnel heating system was running off the facility's backup generator. If he lost power, the dragons would freeze. His comm unit buzzed. The colony administrator's face appeared, haggard and desperate. "Grant, your facility has independent power, correct?" "Yes, solar panels and a backup generator. We are evacuating people from failing buildings. We need every location with power to take in refugees. How many can you fit?" Owen looked at the warehouse. It was huge, easily capable of holding 50 people. But 50 people would discover the dragons within hours. He started to refuse, started to make an excuse. Then Silvara's voice came from behind him. "Tell them yes." Owen turned. All 4 dragons stood there, their expressions determined. "We cannot let people die because of us," Silver said firmly. "You would never forgive yourself." "We would never forgive ourselves, but they will find you. Then they find us. Some things are more important than hiding." Owen wanted to argue, wanted to protect them, but he looked at their faces and saw the same stubbornness he felt when he had first opened his door to them, the same refusal to let others suffer when you had the power to help. "Fine," he told the administrator. "Send them here." The refugees arrived in waves. Men, women, children, all cold and frightened. Owen directed them into the warehouse, turned on every heater, distributed blankets and food. Among them was a woman named Diana with 2 children, a boy of 10 and a girl of 6. The girl, Ruth, had eyes that reminded Owen painfully of Lily. The dragons retreated to the tunnels as planned. Owen activated the heating units and tried to monitor their situation remotely while managing 40 refugees upstairs. It was chaos. People needed food, medical attention, reassurance. Children cried. Adults argued. Owen ran himself ragged trying to help everyone. On day 2 of the storm, disaster struck. A power surge from the failing grid knocked out one of Owen's generators. He had enough power to run the warehouse or the tunnel heating, but not both. Owen stood at the control panel, staring at the impossible choice. 40 humans upstairs who would be uncomfortable but alive if he cut their heat. 4 dragons below who would die if he cut theirs. His finger hovered over the switch. Then he heard a voice behind him. "Owen, the tunnel heaters just went offline." He spun around. One of the refugees, an engineer named Harold, stood there holding a diagnostic tablet. He must have been investigating the power systems. "I can explain," Owen started, but Harold cut him off. "There are 4 massive heat signatures in the tunnels below us. They were keeping warm, but now the temperature is dropping fast. Whatever is down there is going to freeze." Harold paused, his expression unreadable. "Are those dragons?" Owen could have lied. Should have lied. But he was too tired, too worried, too done with hiding. "Yes." Harold was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "And bring them up here." "What?" "Bring them up. If they stay down there, they die. If you keep the heat on them, we all die. The only solution is to bring them up where the shared heat will keep everyone alive. These people will panic. Some of them might try to hurt the dragons. Then we convince them not to." Harold looked Owen in the eye. "You saved 40 people during the storm. Now save 4 more. I will help you." Owen wanted to believe him, but fear gripped his heart. "Why would you help?" "Because," Harold said simply, "it is the right thing to do." Together they went down to the tunnels. The dragons were huddled together for warmth, their breath coming out in frozen clouds. They looked up as Owen approached, their eyes filled with resignation. "I am sorry," Silvara said. "We tried to keep quiet." "You are coming upstairs," Owen told them. "Owen, no. The humans will fear us, maybe, but you were right. Some things are more important than hiding." Slowly, the dragons climbed out of the tunnels. Owen led them through the access corridor toward the main warehouse. His heart pounded. This could go wrong in so many ways. The refugees could panic, could attack, could call authorities. He opened the door and 4 dragons emerged into the warehouse full of humans. Silence fell like a hammer. 40 people stared at 4 dragons. 4 dragons stared back. Then Diana's daughter Ruth did something no one expected. She walked forward, looked up at Ember, and said in a clear, innocent voice, "Are you cold? I have a blanket you can share." The moment hung suspended. Then Ruth reached up and offered her small blanket to the massive dragon. Ember looked at Owen, uncertain. Owen nodded. Carefully, gently, Ember took the blanket. "Thank you, small one," Ember said softly. Ruth smiled. "You are welcome. My daddy told me dragons are nice if you are nice to them first." The tension in the room cracked. Not all of it, but enough. Diana moved forward slowly, placing herself between the dragons and her children, but she did not attack. She did not scream, "Who are you?" she asked Silvara. "Refugees," Silvara answered. "Like you. We crashed here months ago. Owen has been sheltering us." "Illegally," someone called out. "Yes," Owen said, stepping forward. "Illegally. I broke the law to save their lives. And I would do it again." Harold moved to stand beside Owen. "These dragons helped design the new shelter systems that are saving lives across the frontier. Without them, Owen could not have created those innovations. They have contributed more to this colony than most of us." A murmur ran through the crowd, fear and curiosity mixing together. An older man spoke up. "Dragons are dangerous. Everyone knows that." Talon stepped forward, his injured leg still showing scars. "We were dangerous once, when our people were at war with themselves. But that was long ago. We are tired of fighting. We just want to live in peace. Then why hide?" another refugee demanded. "Because no one would let us live in peace if they knew we were here," Frost said quietly. "They would put us in camps, make us work, or kill us because they fear what we might do." Diana looked at her children, then at the dragons, then at Owen. "You took us in during the storm, gave us shelter without asking for anything. The dragons could have stayed hidden and safe, but they chose to risk everything to make sure we had enough heat." She paused. "That does not sound like dangerous creatures to me." Ruth was already sitting beside Ember, chattering about something only she found interesting. The young dragon listened with patient attention, their fear gradually melting away. Owen felt something shift in the warehouse. Not acceptance, not yet, but the beginning of possibility. The first crack in the wall of fear. "We have 3 more days until the storm breaks," Harold said. "We are all stuck here together. Might as well make the best of it. Slowly, carefully, the two groups began to coexist. Some refugees stayed far from the dragons. Others, especially the children, were curious. Ruth appointed herself as Ember's best friend and refused to leave their side. But Owen knew this fragile peace could not last. When the storm ended, when people returned to their homes, the truth would spread, and then everything would come crashing down. 5 days after the storm ended, Owen stood in his warehouse watching 40 former refugees leave in transport vehicles. Some shook his hand. Others thanked him quietly. Diana hugged him and Ruth cried because she had to leave Ember behind. The young dragon looked just as sad. "We will see each other again," Ember promised. "I swear it." Ruth made Ember promise 3 more times before her mother could coax her into the transport. When everyone had gone, Owen waited. He knew what was coming. The refugees had been good to their word and said nothing about the dragons to the authorities during the evacuation. But now they were back in their homes talking to their neighbors, and secrets had a way of spreading. The call came 2 hours later. Galactic Patrol had received reports of unregistered aliens in the sector. A raid team was being dispatched to investigate. They would arrive in 6 hours. Owen looked at Silvara, Talon, Frost, and Ember, his family. "We have 6 hours to decide. You can run, try to find another hiding place, or we can fight this legally." "We are done running," Silvara said firmly. "We stand together." Owen nodded and made a call he had been avoiding. He contacted the corporate executives who had been planning to visit before the storm. The same ones who loved his shelter designs. "Mr. Grant," the executive said, surprised. "Is everything all right?" "No. I need to tell you the truth about those shelter designs. I did not create them alone. I had help from 4 dragon engineers who have been living at my facility." Silence on the other end. "They are refugees," Owen continued quickly. "They are brilliant, hardworking, and responsible for most of the innovations in those designs. I want to hire them officially, give them work visas, make them legal consultants for the company. That is highly irregular. It is also profitable. These dragons can revolutionize frontier construction, but only if they are not arrested and deported first. Galactic Patrol is on the way here now. I need corporate lawyers, I need official documentation, and I need it in the next 6 hours." The executive was quiet for a long moment. Owen could practically hear the calculations happening. How good are their designs? Good enough to make this company the leader in frontier technology for the next decade. I will make some calls. The next 6 hours were the longest of Owen's life. Corporate lawyers arrived in 3 hours, moving faster than Owen thought possible. They began processing emergency work visa applications, drafting contracts, building a legal framework to make the dragons legitimate employees rather than illegal aliens. Harold showed up with 10 other refugees who had sheltered at the facility. "We are here to testify if needed. Those dragons saved our lives. We will not let them be taken." Diana arrived with Ruth, who immediately ran to hug Ember. "My mom says we are going to tell everyone the truth about how nice you are." More people arrived. People from the colony who had heard about the dragons and were curious rather than afraid. Not everyone was supportive. Some showed up to protest to demand the dragons be removed, but they were outnumbered by those willing to give the dragons a chance. The Galactic Patrol arrived exactly on time. 6 officers in full armor, weapons ready. Their captain was a hard-faced woman named Sterling who looked like she had never smiled in her life. "Owen Grant, you are suspected of harboring unregistered aliens in violation of Section 12 of the Galactic Immigration Act." Owen stepped forward, his corporate lawyers flanking him. "The beings in question are registered as of 2 hours ago. Here are their work visas, employment contracts, and legal documentation." Captain Sterling took the papers and examined them with narrowed eyes. "These were issued today, but they were issued legally," one of the lawyers said smoothly. "All proper procedures were followed. He still harbored them before today. That is a criminal offense." "Actually," Harold spoke up, "Mr. Grant rescued refugees in distress and provided emergency humanitarian aid, which is protected under the Sapient Rights Act. Any reasonable person would have done the same." Captain Sterling looked at the crowd that had gathered, at the corporate representatives standing with Owen, at the refugees holding signs supporting the dragons, at a 6-year-old girl holding a dragon's claw. "This is highly irregular," she said. "But legal," the lawyer repeated. Captain Sterling's jaw tightened. She looked like she wanted to argue, to find some loophole, some way to arrest everyone. But the paperwork was solid. The crowd was watching. The media drones had arrived and were recording everything. Finally, she stepped back. This is not over. We will be monitoring this situation closely. Please do, Owen said calmly. You will find 4 law-abiding citizens working honestly to build a better life. The patrol left. Owen waited until their ships disappeared before he allowed himself to breathe again. Then the crowd erupted in cheers. The dragons were legal. They were safe. They were free. 3 months passed. The dragons became a fixture of the colony, no longer hiding but living openly. Their shelter designs went into production and began saving lives across the frontier. Other dragon refugees heard about what had happened and began arriving, asking for the same chance at a new life. Owen's facility expanded. He hired more dragons, gave them work and safety and dignity. His company became the most successful construction firm in the sector, known for innovation and ethical practices. Diana and Ruth visited every week. Ruth and Ember remained best friends, the girl teaching the dragon about human games while the dragon taught her about mathematics and stars. It was a strange friendship, but it worked. One evening, Owen stood outside his facility watching the sunset paint the ice fields gold and purple. Silvara stood beside him, her wings catching the light. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "Opening your door that night?" Owen thought about the question. His life had been simple before the dragons, quiet, safe, lonely. "Not for a second," he said. "We changed your life. You saved my life. I was just existing before you arrived. Now I am living." Frost and Ember emerged from the facility, laughing about something. Talon followed, walking without a limp now, fully healed. They looked happy. They looked free. "More dragons are coming," Silvara said. 5 families this time. They heard about what you did. They want the same chance. Then we will give it to them. You cannot save everyone, Owen. Maybe not, but I can save the ones who make it to my door. That has to be enough. Silvara pressed her forehead against his shoulder, the dragon gesture of deep affection. "You have a very human heart. Stubborn and foolishly optimistic. Is that a compliment?" "The highest one I know." That night another ship landed outside the facility. 5 dragon families emerged, cold and desperate and frightened. Owen opened the doors wide and welcomed them in. Silvara and her family helped get them settled, sharing food and warmth and hope. As Owen watched his facility fill with life again, he thought about the path that had led him here, the losses he had suffered, the grief he had carried, the moment he had chosen to open his door to strangers despite every logical reason not to. One choice. That was all it took. One moment of compassion in the darkness. And from that single choice, an entire community had grown. Lives had been saved. Laws had been challenged. Change had begun. Harold was right. Human stories taught that one person could make a difference. One person's choice could change everything. Owen had made that choice. And in doing so, he had found something he thought he had lost forever. He had found family. He had found purpose. He had found home. Ruth ran past him, chasing Ember through the warehouse, both of them laughing. Diana smiled and apologized for her energetic daughter. Frost showed a newly arrived young dragon how to use the welding equipment. Talon discussed construction plans with Owen's human employees like it was the most natural thing in the world. This was not the life Owen had planned. It was messy and chaotic and complicated. It was also beautiful and meaningful and full of love. Outside, the ice fields of Vostara 7 stretched away into the distance, cold and harsh and unforgiving. But inside Owen's facility, warmth blazed like a star against the darkness, a beacon for anyone lost in the cold, a promise that shelter existed for those who needed it, a reminder that kindness could survive even in the harshest environments. The door remained unlocked. The lights remained on, and Owen Grant, former loner, former broken man, current foreman, and accidental revolutionary, stood ready to welcome whoever came through next. Because that was what family did. That was what home meant. That was what it meant to be human at your best. You opened the door. You shared the warmth. You protected those who needed protecting. And you never ever turned away someone begging in the cold. The facility's sign glowed in the twilight, visible for miles across the frozen landscape. It read simply, Grant Construction and Engineering. But to the dragons who lived there and to the refugees who came seeking shelter, it meant something more. It meant hope. It meant safety. It meant that somewhere in the vast cold galaxy there was still compassion. It meant they had found their way home.